I like your funny words, Magic Man.
John Fitzgerald Kennedy, 35th President of the United States, Democratic legend, and now a really weird meme. Let's talk about this. Look, if you've been on the internet at all, chances are you know about Clone High. This early 2000s MTV show is infamous for being cancelled too soon, among other things. In fact, Clone High has even had meme success all the way back in 2010 with the Say What meme.
Say what?
Literally a decade ago, as some pointed out online, which just shows how long Clone High has been in the public internet consciousness. It's been around for a while. The series itself is something that I really couldn't describe in words, but a basic description would be that it centers on a high school for reincarnated historical figures. However, the show itself was less history lesson and more parody. In fact, the entire show was built around being a spoof of popular teen dramas at the time like Dawson's Creek. And you would think that would cause the show to become dated, but instead, just the opposite happened. Instead, Clone High never faded away. It was so universally funny that it managed to maintain its cult success for over 2 decades. But recently, and I mean very recently, as in like the last month, we've seen something that I never could have imagined. Clone High managed to break through the barrier of niche online animation thing and became an honest-to-God mainstream meme. The simulation is broken. Play the TikToks. So if you couldn't tell by that, the meme in question centers on the most infamous, and if I'm being honest, the funniest character in the show, JFK.
Okay, JFK is supposed to play a dumb jock in this cartoon, and they made him all caked up for no reason. Like, look at that.
In Clone High, JFK is a womanizing jock, a caricature of the sleaziest parts of the beloved figure. Now, the memes itself range from him just popping up in popular images, to the famous sound of nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys, one of my favorite jokes in Clone High, again, so weird that it's a meme now, the simulation is broken. And while we all knew JFK was an absolute dog, okay, we all heard the rumors, his recent resurgence made me wonder, how accurate is this depiction of JFK? Okay, I mean, obviously, it's so wrong and comedically inaccurate, right? Well, Clone High JFK is technically JFK as a teenager, so his behavior, in a weird way, not to justify it, kind of makes sense. Which made me question, in turn, what the real JFK was like as a teenager, and I just had to do some research on this. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's fall down this rabbit hole together in an attempt to answer the question, how accurate is Clone High's JFK? This is going to be a roller coaster. Okay, so let's start at the source. In the show, John F. Kennedy is the typical jock archetype. He is comedically inconsiderate. A womanizer to much success, he's shown not only to be rude and self-centered, but almost ignorant to his own sleaziness. Most of the time, this is played for jokes. But deep down, he is truly a horrible person. Often his own ego leading to his own demise. Again, one of the most iconic lines from the show is nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys, before tragically crashing. And that's historically accurate. The Kennedy family is almost cursed if you look into their background. The amount of tragedy they've faced as a family name is kind of uncanny. In the show, he's not a part of the elite Kennedy family, instead having 2 dads, which is kind of sick to be honest. That's something that I really respected about Clone High. It really played up the fact that all of these clones are adopted children, and showed that side of it. I'm not trying to give too much empathetic clout to what is obviously a goofy MTV sitcom, but I think it just deserves to be said. In the show, besides all the women he has flings with, his main love interest is Cleopatra, who he is often in a love triangle with the other president in the show, Abe Lincoln. That I won't spoil or get into, but over the course of the series, it's very apparent that John F. Kennedy overall he's just a dick. And that's because in the show, he's just a popular jock archetype. If anything, John F. Kennedy's character just isn't that complicated. I can't analyze it too much because there's not a lot here. Sure, he has genuine character moments throughout the season, again, there only being 1. And it makes me wonder if they would have developed his character more if the series went on longer. I guess with news of a reboot coming soon, maybe we'll get a chance to see that. But as it stands now, we've only had 1 season of his character, and yeah, there's really not a lot here. I'm being honest. Sure, he's one of the funniest characters in the series, and there's nothing better than that JFK accent. It makes every line funny, but even that accent is proof that this is less of an accurate depiction and more of a comedic caricature. But before we can come to that conclusion, I think it's only fair that we look to the real JFK. John Fitzgerald Kennedy is honestly one of the most beloved and well-respected figures in American history. The youngest to become president by election, he was charismatic, smart, popular, and loved by everyone, sort of like his character on Clone High. Despite all of this, he was still tragically assassinated, solidifying his legacy as a tragic American hero. Though despite what he was like in the public eye, in comparison to Clone High, the real JFK was very, very different in his teenage years. In his early life, John was constantly plagued by illnesses and health problems, even being hospitalized for suspected leukemia at one point. And unlike Clone High's JFK's humble origins, the real JFK honestly was a rich boy. Coming from a wealthy political family, the Kennedys are honestly famous enough in their own right. And no, he didn't go to Clone High or any public high school. He went to private boarding schools and then eventually Harvard. Something that honestly this clone JFK could never ever do. So already these are two very different people. But despite all of this, there were some similarities. The real JFK was very athletic. He just also sailed boats, you know, rich people stuff. Eventually he went into the Navy, but no one cares about that part of his life, even though there's a lot there, honestly. Let's skip to the interesting part. Because in 1961, John F. Kennedy became leader of the free world and our 35th president, launching him into American history forever. And honestly, politics aside, no matter how you feel about him or his policies, you cannot deny that publicly at least, JFK was one of the most hip and cool presidents we've ever had. And that's partly to do with the fact that he was very young. In fact, in retrospect, the Kennedy family was more famous in a celebrity way than they were in a presidential way. And it kind of shifted what it meant to be an American president. And honestly, right now, having an actual celebrity in office, it's kind of eerie to look back on. Look, I'm not a historian, but I feel like JFK did a pretty good job as president, at least in certain aspects. He was incredibly popular, and literally got us through the Cuban Missile Crisis, which was a pretty big deal. Also, he literally got us to the moon, which I'm sorry, that's sick. I know there's way more people to thank than just the president, but obviously winning the space race made him look pretty good as the leader. And look, I know a comparison between these two is kind of goofy, okay? But they are very similar in one way. The real JFK had some mad affairs. Now take these all with a grain of salt. I know they're technically rumors, but I mean, come on. Pretty much public knowledge at this point that JFK was not a very faithful husband. In fact, there's whole lists online and plenty of women that were rumored to be his mistresses. Probably the most famous being Marilyn Monroe. If you dig into his affairs, it's a pretty deep rabbit hole. In fact, I was kind of shocked. One of the mistresses in question was even rumored to be a legit communist spy, which I couldn't make up if I tried. That's crazy. From movie stars to White House interns, my lord. TLDR, he was not a very good husband. And besides all the whispers, none of this really came out until years later, and truth be told, none of this really matters now, because his tragic assassination kind of solidified his legacy, and that's why JFK is such a legend to this day, in a literal sense. He never lived past 46 and will be frozen at that point in his life until the end of time. It's honestly a really sad story, but that didn't stop Clone High from punking on his accent.
For supper, I want a party platter.
With all that being said, what's my conclusion here? Look, this video was a goofy idea, and I kind of went into it hoping I'd be surprised, but honestly, that wasn't the case. Of course, JFK in Clone High is not an accurate depiction. Of course, he's not historically accurate. He's not even supposed to be JFK. He's supposed to be a clone of John F. Kennedy. Now, did I think it was cool every time there was a similarity that kind of lined up? Of course I did. Do I think the Clone High team spent a lot of time doing research? I'm not sure. It wouldn't matter anyways. I'm definitely overanalyzing here, but the point of Clone High is that they're clones of historical figures that are nothing like their original figures. And that's what makes JFK such an incredible character. If anything, the comedy comes from the fact that these stereotyped caricatures of these historical figures we all have in our heads fit the high school stereotypes so perfectly. JFK was a popular womanizer. It would make sense that he was a jock. At the very least, it's just funny. And the fact that the real JFK was so respectable and this version is not is literally the reason why it's funny. So am I overanalyzing? 100%. But I will be the first to call myself out on that. So how accurate is JFK in Clone High? Really, just as accurate as it needs to be. Just don't think about it too much. But that being said, I want to know what you guys think. Have you seen Clone High? Who's your favorite character? Let us know in those comments down below, or tweet to us at Roundtable Vids, or me at Nemo. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the Roundtable for more incredible cartoon content. As always, guys, I'm Nemo. This is a Clone High video, and I will see you next time. Peace.